there's an injustice against you or someone you love or someone you believe in, stand up. Don't sit down on them. They need you.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet's Pop Culture Justice. I'm so excited to be here with you live. We got an amazing show. We got amazing guests. Look who's here, lawyer Christopher Melcher and Steph, the Alter Nerd. Welcome, both of you. Steph, I always see you. Look who's back. Christopher's here. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good. Glad to join the live.
Yeah, this is good to have you, but annoying because you're here for reasons I wish were going another way. And Steph, welcome. Good to see you. But I'm sure you share my frustration as we get into this stuff. It turns out, for those of you who've been following this channel for a while and our coverage of the trial and after, Amber Heard was supposed to be tried in Australia for perjury, is what was really supposed to happen. And Australia government had been waiting forever based on this stuff with the dogs that they brought in illegally. And we're going to talk more about what it is. But a determination has now come in regarding the prosecution of Amber Heard. And prosecution action will not be taken against actress Amber Heard over allegations related to her sentencing for illegal import of 2 dogs in Australia. Department collaborated with agencies both in Australia and overseas to investigate these claims against Miss Heard. A brief of evidence was referred to the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions, who has made a decision not to persecute in this instance, having applied the prosecution policy of the Commonwealth. Now, as you eloquently said, Christopher, this does not declare innocence. The facts remain, and we're going to go through it. But can I just say,
balls.
I'm just annoyed because why does this woman never have to take any damn responsibility? This is frustrating, Christopher. I'm opening up first because you did a very good thread, and we're going to probably go through it again. But this woman perjured herself and was caught illegally bringing these dogs in Australia, which goes against so many other policies. It's really not good for their things. And now Australia, who has been working on this document and this investigation for so long, just decided no. I guess, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think happened here? Why aren't they following the law?
Well, I mean, this is a decision that they get to make. Criminal prosecution is obviously a really, really big deal. And so they have to be careful with it. And it's more than just whether somebody committed a crime. So obviously, the prosecutor has to have a good faith belief that a crime has been committed by this person and that they can secure a conviction. So in every case, ethically, a prosecutor has to have that reasonable belief in order to bring, the weight of the government down onto somebody's back. But there's other considerations that go into it. And, the policies that they've listed there for the Commonwealth for prosecutors to consider go into things about, is there a prior criminal history? What is the severity of the crime? How long did it occur? And there's really a balancing that has to happen here for the use of public resources to put into a prosecution and, in terms of what benefit the public gets out of it. Now, again, putting all issues about how anyone feels for or against Amber Heard aside for the moment, the biosecurity laws of Australia are extraordinarily important. Those are there for a purpose. This isn't just some rule that they came up with. It's a beautiful, beautiful country, and they need to protect what they have, their natural resources. And if you're bringing in dogs that have not been quarantined and checked and all this stuff, then that threatens the biosecurity of their country. So it's extraordinarily important. And she lied. And I know a lot of people are, it was Johnny's dog. The ownership of the dog is irrelevant. She was on the plane with the dogs when she had been advised that it was illegal for her to do so. She did it anyway, and she signed an entry form declaring under oath that she did not have pets with her. And then for whatever reason, she takes the dogs to groomers during the trip. It's discovered through some social media posts that these dogs are there. They do an investigation. They pick up the dogs. And she was then prosecuted for falsely submitting this entry form declaring that she had no dogs with her when in fact she did. Now, when that prosecution happened, she tried to get one or more assistants to take the fall for her and to falsely state that that was their mistake. Oh, I didn't know. I was relying on them. Well, there's clear email communications with the assistants that she absolutely knew. She was told not to do it. She did it anyway, and she wanted to blame the assistants. She eventually got one of the assistants to.
We have, not to interrupt you, but just because you have an amazing thread here, I'm just trying to make sure people can, if they want to follow this and see this proof, I'll put it in the description. But as you're pointing that out, yes, we're not just making this up. Here are the emails with former assistant Kate James, and I guess there were more later, correct?
Yeah, so she first went to Kate James, the assistant, her assistant, the one, and asked her to lie. And Kate James said, no, I'm not going to do that. Then went to Kevin Murphy, who is the assistant for Johnny, and asked him to take the fall for it. And eventually he did take the fall for it. And he stated, yeah, it was kind of my fault or whatever. And she knew, Amber knew that was a false declaration. She had procured that false declaration from him. She understood it was false because he had told her that she could not do the thing now that she claims she didn't know about. And so she procured a false declaration to submit to the Australian government in sentencing, on a resolution, a plea bargain on the false entry case that had been filed against her. So remember, there was a prosecution of her in Australia, and to get out of that, she procured a false declaration from this assistant, and she presented it, and they relied upon it as true. And then after the fact, when the English case was going on, Kevin Murphy said, yeah, that was a lie, and she asked me to lie, and I regret it, and he admitted to lying. Now, the English court judge, for whatever reason, and again, everyone has their own way of kind of processing this information, but the English judge said, well, because Mr. Murphy admitted to lying, he therefore is not credible, and so I don't give any credit or weight to his testimony, and believed Amber. But again, it's very strange logic, because Kevin's whole story is that Amber asked him to lie, and she knew it was a lie. So if he's a liar, she's also a liar. Yep. And so again, very, very odd. But the Australian government, like I say, relied upon this. And then when they found out that they had been duped, they then opened up a criminal investigation and to determine whether now they're going to charge her for perjury, which is obviously very serious crime. It's a, offense to justice, to present false evidence. When she's being accused of lying on an entry form, she's now, was being accused or at least investigated for having presented false testimony to get out of that prior prosecution. So again, 2 offenses against Australia: violating their biosecurity law by bringing these pets into the country without quarantine, lying that on the entry form that she had no such pets, then procuring and showing a false declaration to the court to get out of that case. So they look really embarrassed here, I would think. And so they looked at it, and they took a long time looking at it. We're talking a couple years now. Yeah. They took a long time looking at it, and eventually decided, as they issued, yesterday evening, they're not going to prosecute. And again, that's their right, but that is the end of that chapter for Amber Heard.
Yeah, and someone was chiming in. They also blame the customs officers through here. There was a lot of stuff coming in. Interestingly enough, also the audio that you sent me during that was Christopher sent it to me and just at me, and you ended up getting like 2,000 likes on this thing, which was impressive that this tweet went there. But now the thing's been removed. Do you think there's something shady here? I mean, everyone's saying in the comments, like, is there a version of it? Like, I know you can't prove that. You like to focus on the facts, but it just seems like it's all very clear cut. Is there a version where maybe it didn't want to deal with her? Is there a version where Amber could have curried favor and gotten somebody to just sort of like, fine, we'll give you the slap on the wrist? It just is kind of crazy to me that this wasn't followed through after so much pressure and time. Could something fishy have happened in your opinion?
I mean, I don't have any evidence of that. I think that it's weird, okay? Because when Barnaby Joyce, who was, one of the officials from the Australian government, was coming out, and he's really attacking Johnny initially. He was really going after Johnny Depp and saying that we don't want these rich celebrities, powerful people coming into our country and thinking that they can just violate our laws. And he was taking a lot of pot shots at Johnny, and Johnny, and in response, took a lot of pot shots back at Barnaby. And they eventually, there's Barnaby Joyce. Yeah, dog's gone. He tweeted when Johnny hired a private jet to fly these dogs out of there so they wouldn't be euthanized. Amber then eventually named one of her dogs Barnaby. So they had a lot of fun with him. But the whole point of Barnaby's comments, that's Barnaby right there.
There it is, yeah.
The whole point of Barnaby's comments is like, rich people don't get a pass. Like, look, any of us who did any of this stuff, we would be held to task for that. But, he was saying, hey, you can't just have rich people, famous people coming in and not following our laws and thinking there's not going to be a consequence. But that's exactly what they've allowed now to happen by not prosecuting. Now, the thing is that as a prosecutor, they also have to look at, okay, this was, a fair amount of time ago. She didn't have any other criminal convictions. There's going to be some issue here because she doesn't live in Australia. She would have to be extradited. And they would also, I imagine, look at the enormous cost potentially of a prosecution. Because, with a high-profile case, it would be expensive for them to put on. And so when they weigh all that stuff together, are they going to spend a bunch of their money prosecuting her when they have finite resources, or is it those resources better spent,
we could have crowdfunded it.
Yeah. So,
come on.
I would have put into that.
Yeah, I bet you a lot of us would have put in to see the justice served on this. Are they allowed to do that? Can we change their mind? I guess it's done now. Once they've made the decision, we can't do anything to get their funding up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the money itself was the issue, but I got to think it's a factor. It would be high profile, it would be very disruptive, and the thing is they spent a lot of time looking at it, and we knew that they had corresponded with the FBI because they have to do that when it's just a matter of diplomatic channels, really. So if you're a government of Australia and you want information or evidence that's located in the U.S., you have to go through the FBI. The FBI helps procure those statements and that evidence. So they went through that whole process. It was very time consuming, and they were doing it very carefully as if they were going to prosecute. So the good thing is they didn't blow this off. They took it very seriously. They thought about it. And, I respect the decision because, again, it's like, to me, it's all about process. It's if you had a fair process, then the result is whatever the result is. Just as if I've always said, if Johnny would have lost the Virginia trial, I would have respected what the jury had to say about that because he had a fair process. That's why, I respect that verdict because 6 weeks, they had all the evidence. So here, they took it seriously. They spent a lot of time looking at it. They gathered the evidence, and they, as a government or a prosecution office, decided not to prosecute. That's their job.
So she breathed a sigh of relief. But again, to echo what you said, that does not declare innocence, which she may try to say, see, they didn't come after me because I did nothing wrong. If she tries to play that card and they get pissed, is there a version where they can reopen this, or this is now done?
They can absolutely reopen it because the statute, I don't know if there even is a statute of limitations for perjury, meaning a deadline. And if it is, it's extraordinarily long. When I looked at this before in Australian law, I can't remember exactly what the answer is, but they still have time to prosecute her. So a decision not to prosecute is not binding. It's not like they brought a case and dismissed it and there's some kind of final resolution to it. So they absolutely could. I wouldn't see any circumstances under which that would occur, unless she brought other pets into the country illegally, then or committed other crimes in the country. Then sure, they could just say, hey, we're just going to go for the whole thing now. But absent that, I don't think so. I think also, she would be at. Well, I think she's a lot safer now to travel to Australia. I think before she would have been well advised not to go to Australia because they could have then, taken her into custody. Could have filed charges and taken her into custody because part of it before was she's not resident there. If charges were filed, they would have to do an international extradition proceeding. And again, very expensive, time consuming.
So
And
wait,
at the end of the day, is it worth it?
well, I was just gonna say maybe let's end this on a positive. Maybe they're trying to trick her so that she thinks she can now come in, and as soon as she does, they're gonna be like, "Gotcha! We're opening up the charges," and the whole thing's to bang. Who knows? So, is there? I'm guessing she's still not gonna ever set foot in Australia at this point, just out of being safe. But anyway, I don't know what to tell you guys. This is frustrating because we have the evidence, we know what happened. They spent so much time. Steph, I suspect you and I will speculate and share some more opinions similarly to complain about what's happening here. In the meanwhile, that's the skinny from Christopher Melcher. If you want more from him, check out this thread. It'll break down all the evidence better than I can. We've done videos on this already as well, so you can go check out our previous videos or just go to his thread. I'll put the link to the thread. Steph, if you can help me, I'll put the link here. Let's throw it in the descriptions. That way folks have it, and you guys can get all the information here so you know the facts about the case with all the other sources. You can also follow Christopher over at CA_divorce. Go follow him. He broke this today for all of us, so that you want to go follow him to get those scoops when he does it. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for being here. We are not done, though. If you're watching live, don't go anywhere. If you're not watching live, what are you waiting for? Hit that join button. Become a member today. Pick a tier. In fact, we're going to have our first next level stream coming up. I think it's next week, or we're going to tell you in a minute. Next week, next Thursday, I believe, after the show. So let's see some next levelers today. Thank you guys so much for watching live and on the replay. Stay tuned for more if you're watching us later.